A wealthy father disguised himself as a beggar. Not to test the world, but to find a wife worthy of his stubborn son's heart. What he discovered in a poor claymaker's daughter would change their lives forever. This isn't just a love story. It's a test of truth, character, and the kind of beauty wealth can't buy. In the heart of Africa, where the baobab trees stand tall and whispers of the ancestors float with the evening breeze, a father set out on an unusual quest. In the peaceful village of Mapendo, surrounded by rolling hills and crimson clay paths, lived an old man named Mzee Rafik. Once a humble cattle herder, he had worked his way up to become one of the most respected men in the land. He owned acres of fertile land, grain stores that could feed a town, and cattle that shimmered like polished bronze in the sun. But for all his riches, one thing troubled his aging heart. His only son, Ayaan, was refusing to marry. Ayaan had studied in the capital, returning with a head full of knowledge and eyes that often gazed far beyond the horizon. He was tall, calm, and deeply respected by the villagers. But when elders and family brought him proposals, he would shake his head politely. "I do not want a wife chosen from wealth or status," he would say. "But you choose no one at all," Mzee Rafik would argue. "Then I choose peace," Ayaan would reply, walking away. But the silence in their home grew louder with every passing season. One dry afternoon, as Mzee Rafik sat beneath the giant baobab tree at the center of his compound, watching the shadows stretch across the dusty earth, an idea came to him. A wild, risky, and strangely beautiful idea. "If my son won't go looking for love, then I will," he muttered. "But not as myself." He stood slowly, his joints stiff like the cracked riverbeds nearby. Calling his old friend and housekeeper Babu Kazi, he whispered his plan. "Bring me rags, old shoes, and smear ash on my face. I want to become what no one expects, a beggar." Babu Kazi blinked. "You, sir? A beggar?" "Yes," Rafik replied. "I will walk through this village and the next, not as Mzee Rafik the landowner, but as Mzee Fahim, an old poor wanderer. I want to find a woman who sees kindness before wealth. A woman who would care for a stranger, not knowing who he truly is." That night, the moon rose full, watching over Rafik as he shed his fine robes for a tattered chitange, grabbed a worn walking stick, and left quietly through the rear gate. The days that followed were humbling. Rafik, now Mzee Fahim, sat near market stalls, under mango trees, and outside tiny mosques. He watched people as they passed, some offering him leftover cassava, others ignoring him completely. He visited different villages, Mtiowazi, Kasimba, and finally Urembo. Everywhere he went, he took note of how young women reacted to him. Many were too busy. Some were polite but distant. Others laughed or whispered when he passed. But in Urembo something shifted. One morning, Rafik arrived near the riverbank, where the villagers molded clay pots. The smell of wet earth filled the air. There, sitting beside a cracked mud house, was a young woman. Her hands covered in red clay, a smudge on her cheek, her laughter soft as the river's song. Her name was Zoya. Rafik sat under a neem tree nearby, pretending to rest. Zoya noticed him but didn't stare. She continued working, gently shaping the mouth of a water jug. Then she stood, walked into her home, and came out with a small plate, ugali and sukuma still warm. She placed it near him. "Eat, Mzee. The sun is strong today," she said, smiling. He looked up. No fear, no disgust, just simple care. "Why do you help me?" he asked gently. "Because hunger does not wear gold or rags. It visits all." Those words struck his heart. He returned the next day. And the next. Sometimes Zoya told him about her childhood, how her parents died when she was 12, how she lived with her grandmother, and how she made clay pots to survive. She never once asked him for anything in return. One day, Rafik pretended to be sick, groaning softly under the same tree. Zoya rushed over with a bowl of herbal tea and placed a damp cloth on his head. "You need to rest, Mzee," she said. "Stay here today. I'll bring you dinner too." Later, she even repaired his sandal with a strip of cloth. Rafik wept in secret that night. He had found her. But there was a final test. Would she still be kind? If she knew nothing about who he was or what he could offer? Or was it all pity? Back at the family compound, Rafik finally returned one night in his true clothes. Ayaan saw him walk in, face tired but eyes shining like a flame. "Where have you been, Baba?" Ayaan asked, confused. "Finding your future." He told Ayaan everything. The disguise, the journey, the girl. Ayaan sat silent, stunned by his father's courage and madness. Then slowly, his lips curled into a small smile. "You really did that for me? You say you want true love, Ayaan. I found someone who loves without condition. Her name is Zoya. She is poor in coins but rich in character. And what do you want from me?" Ayaan asked. Rafik placed a small clay pendant on the table, one Zoya had made and gifted him during one of their chats. "I want you to meet her. Not as Rafik's son. As yourself." The next morning, under a soft blue sky and the call of hornbills in the trees, Ayaan set off for Urembo village, not in his usual crisp white robe, but dressed plainly, like a humble traveling artisan. No gold ring, no family name. Only a rolled cloth bag over his shoulder and a quiet sense of curiosity stirring in his chest. His father had described Zoya with such tenderness. It made him wonder, could someone like that really exist in today's world? When he arrived at the riverbank, he found her just as Rafik had said, kneeling beside a mound of clay, shaping it patiently with her hands. Her face was streaked with earth, but her eyes held peace, not burden. "Peace be upon you, sister," Ayaan said politely. She looked up, surprised but not alarmed. "Peace to you too, stranger. I heard your pottery is well known in these parts," he smiled. "I'm preparing for my brother's wedding. I'd like to place an order." Zoya wiped her hands on her wrap and motioned for him to sit. "You've come at a good time. The kiln is ready. What designs are you thinking of?" Over the next few days, Ayaan visited Zoya regularly to discuss the pots, but slowly their conversations began to drift. They spoke of music, of the rains that never came on time, of books she borrowed from the old village library. Zoya asked nothing about his family or wealth. She only smiled, listened, and teased him whenever he used too many big city words. One afternoon, while painting a vase, she suddenly said, "You remind me of someone." Ayaan's heart skipped. "An old beggar who used to sit under that neem tree," she continued, pointing. "Really? What happened to him?" "He vanished a few days ago," she said with a tinge of sadness. "I don't know why, but I miss him." "Why would you miss a beggar?" he asked gently. Zoya looked him straight in the eyes. "Because he made me feel seen. Most people walk past you when you're nothing." He listened. "And I think he carried sadness heavier than his bones." Ayaan said nothing. But his heart was no longer still. That night, Ayaan returned home to Rafik, who was tending his goats quietly. "She's everything you said," Ayaan whispered. "And more." Rafik looked up. "Then why do you look so troubled?" "Because I've lied. She knows me as a stranger. She trusts me, laughs with me, but she doesn't know who I am. Or who you are." Rafik placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then don't keep the lie alive. But when you speak your truth, speak it with humility." He nodded. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow, I will tell her everything." The next day, Ayaan brought her a bouquet of wild lilies and asked to speak privately. They sat beneath the neem tree, the same spot where she once fed his father warm ugali. "Zoya," he began, "there's something I need to confess." She turned, sensing the change in his tone. "My name is not Musa like I told you. I am Ayaan, son of Rafik." Zoya blinked. Her hands froze on her lap. "Your father," she whispered. "He was the beggar?" He nodded. "He disguised himself to find someone who would love without knowing our name or our wealth. You passed that test in every way." Zoya stood slowly. Her eyes shone, not with anger but with confusion, betrayal. "You both watched me. judged me without telling me. Like I was part of some game. No, Zoya. It was never meant to hurt you. My father saw something in you. I see it too. She was quiet for a long while. Then she said, I cared for the beggar because he was kind. I welcomed you because you were honest, until now. What am I supposed to believe? Believe this, Ayaan said, voice trembling. I fell for you not because my father told me to, but because you made me laugh. You made me think. You reminded me what real humanity looks like. Zoya looked away, the silence filled only by the distant drumming of the wind. I need time. For 3 days Ayaan stayed away. He didn't send messages. He didn't visit. He simply waited under the great baobab tree at sunset, hoping she might pass that way. And on the 4th day she did. Zoya came carrying a large clay pot with delicate carvings along its surface. She placed it before him. This is for you, she said. One of my best pieces. Ayaan touched it gently. It's beautiful. Zoya looked him in the eye. I won't lie. What your father did was strange, but also wise. He didn't test me for your sake. He tested you. To see if you could see value where others saw nothing. Ayaan felt his heart surge. And did I pass? He asked softly. Zoya smiled. You're still learning. But I'd like to teach you more. If you're willing to sit beside the potter's wheel. Weeks later, the drums of joy echoed across Mapendo. The village gathered beneath the same baobab where Mzee Rafik had first dreamt of love for his son. Zoya walked with grace, her dress woven from cotton dyed with natural earth, and her wrists jingling with beads made from her own broken pots. Ayaan waited for her under a canopy of banana leaves and wildflowers, his eyes never leaving hers. Mzee Rafik sat in the front row, dressed in his finest robe, but he carried something in his hands. The very same walking stick he had used as Mzee Fahim. When Zoya noticed it, she smiled, bowed respectfully and said, Without this stick, I would never have found my path. And the old man, with tears glistening in his eyes, whispered, And without your kindness, my son would never have found his heart. Moral of the story. True beauty is not seen with the eyes, but with the heart. And sometimes the poorest among us carry the richest wisdom.